All right, sweet. I think we can get started. Spadaboom, really appreciate you joining us today. Kicking off yet another conversation as part of our core spotlight series, having conversations with protocols participating in core, learning more about them, figuring out what synergies we have together, ways to work together in the future, and just giving yourself an opportunity to take a deeper dive on your protocol through the Tokemak community. So today we have Spadaboom from Badger here joining us. Spadaboom, pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you again. Glad to be here.
Love it. So can you give us some background on yourself and what Badger is?
Sure. So I am an early contributor to BadgerDAO. Helped get the ball rolling with the DAO back in December of 2020. So we've been around the block a little bit. And been in the crypto space quite a while, I guess now almost 9 years, 9.5 years in that range. And Badger in particular is a DAO and protocol focused on bringing Bitcoin to DeFi. That's been our core mission from the get-go. We believe there's an enormous amount of utility that is really underserved and really not being leveraged or utilized whatsoever for Bitcoin as an asset outside of the Bitcoin network. In terms of statistics, I think, just a little bit over 1% of all Bitcoin has been either wrapped or tokenized or been bridged outside of the Bitcoin network. And of course, it representing over 50% or close to 50% of the total market cap of the crypto industry. It's pretty enormous opportunity. And, even it as a collateral asset and, obviously it being used for LPing and providing liquidity and like the opportunities are just endless because of how liquid of an asset and how large of an asset it actually is. So Badger has a few different products, but our core products are our vaults, and they're really yield automation vaults. They primarily live on top of Curve and Convex. We were one of the first protocols to start working with Convex a ways back and building our strategies around Convex, along with building products for the Convex asset. One of our vaults and one of our top strategies is something we call BVE CVX. So it's a CVX locker vault. There's a few Badgers in the audience, so I'll give a shout out to the brains behind those vaults in particular and those strategies with Tritium and Poe there. But the BVE CVX allows anybody to deposit their CVX. And with that CVX, the vault strategy is to lock it and then you really harvest the bribes that have been so liquid and have been so continuous over the last 7 or 8 months. And then we take those bribes, we sell them for CVX, lock it even further, and sell some for Badger as well, and distribute that to users. And then, of course, it being a wrapper around lock CVX positions, you can provide liquidity for it. There's a curve pool with about 6 or 7 million in liquidity, so you can exit the position before the 16 weeks if you like. You could also borrow against it in certain platforms. So it's really about bringing value and utility to a lock CVX position while maintaining the competitiveness without the work for participating in the bribing ecosystem. But nonetheless, that's really what Badger's all about. Badger, the tokens, a governance token that governs our ecosystem. We've been very active in governance. I think we're almost at 100 Badger improvement proposals. I think 93 or 94 we've done in the last year and a half. And the community, again, it's grown over the last year and a half, but it really is focused and is narrowed on those same value and beliefs in a shared system or a shared vision around bringing Bitcoin to DeFi. So that's Badger. And, in the next month or so, we're going to be launching our first sub-DAO, being CitadelDAO, which we can talk about in a bit. And that's for the most part, like the simplest version of that is decentralized MicroStrategy. The goal is to be the largest community-owned Bitcoin position in the world, actively using the DeFi rails. So that's us.
Love it. Definitely want to dig into Citadel here later in the conversation. I think that'll be a really interesting topic to cover. Can you speak for a minute about like I'm not sure exactly when you launched or when you first ideated Badger, but what led you to either help with the formation of it, or what led you to join the DAO? Curious if you can talk about like what led up to your contributing efforts.
Yeah, it was just a passion for Bitcoin, and also a passion for Ethereum, and a passion and a belief in what I believe is going to be the future financial system in it, DeFi. And also just, I'm not a fan at all of like centralized corporations and how they operate and the lack of transparency. And my professional career, just experiencing the bad side of that. And I just believe so much more in that, again, that transparency and what has now grown into becoming kind of DAOs and having community operated businesses. So that was the main driver. And a lot of people share that same belief, right? There's a lot of people that are not diehard Bitcoin maxis, as people call it. They believe in the in between, and then they also believe in being able to coordinate individuals around a common goal. And that coordination and those people working together, it doesn't matter where they live, how old they are, what gender they are, what nationality they are. All that matters is the actions that you take and what you do. And it opens up an enormous amount of opportunities for people that really didn't have opportunities before to be able to coordinate around these goals and really create and build value in the market. And again, that's another thing that I'm very passionate about, and very much so. I don't want to say spits in the face of traditional corporate, corporations and centralized entities, but it kind of does. And I believe that needs to be dramatically disrupted.
Yep, couldn't agree more on all those points.
I'm curious if it's if you have the data on this, but when Badger started, I'm curious if you know how much wrapped Bitcoin was on Ethereum, and how much of your efforts have been spent trying to increase that ratio and get more OG Bitcoiners into using DeFi, using it as a productive asset as part of smart contracts. Curious if any of your, like, I don't know if it's marketing efforts is the right word to describe it, but just any of your, like, your link, your bridge between the two worlds. How much of your time you've spent trying to get them to come over and use Bitcoin on Ethereum?
Yeah, it's been less about trying to get them to. I think it's been more around servicing those that already believe in that, or already looking to leverage Bitcoin as an asset in the DeFi ecosystem. And then naturally, because of the opportunity that those individuals and those wallets are getting with those Bitcoin assets after they've been tokenized or wrapped or whatever, that's drawn Bitcoiners over because there's just so little to do with it on the native network. But some statistics, just off the top of my head, I remember in February of 2021, I think almost 50% of the wrapped Bitcoin was living in the Badger Vault system. I think around that time there was maybe 100,000, maybe 150,000 Bitcoin that's been bridged over to Ethereum. Today, I think there's like 350,000, just to put in perspective. Our bridge product, which enables people to bring Bitcoin over to Ethereum and directly deposit into our vaults, has processed close to $1 billion in volume in the last 8 or 9 months, just to put it in perspective.
So there's definitely some great numbers. So touching back on what you mentioned earlier, you brought up Citadel, which is your first sub-DAO for Badger. You gave us a quick background on what Citadel wants to do. It wants to be a decentralized micro strategy. Can you talk about what led you to kick that sub-DAO off, and sort of where Citadel is at right now, given it's pretty recent?
Yeah, most certainly. And before we go there, I'd love to talk about Tokemak and Badger and the point of collaboration, because that will then lead into the potential with Citadel and what it is and things along those lines. But really today, I think there's a unique opportunity for both DAOs to collaborate for the simple fact that Tokemak hasn't dipped their toes in Bitcoin, right? It's if you look at everything that you guys have done so far, and it's not to your own, it's not because you didn't want to, it's because of the limitations that exist in the market, right? Just recently, you've put a partner first strategy around what you do with your assets and in the curve and convex ecosystem and providing OP there. And that's a great example of how limited, Bitcoin opportunities are on curve and convex, right? How few gauges there are for specific, how few gauges there are, how little yield there is in the curve and convex ecosystem for Bitcoin, which limits, Tokemak's ability to be I like saying market maker, to centralized market maker. I know that there's a lot of other funky words that you guys use, but it makes it harder for you guys, to really be that market maker if there's few markets to make and there's a little bit of revenue to be made off that. Like I think just yesterday or today, I saw Tokemak generated what was it, $3 or $4 million in revenue in the last week, something along those lines, and I would imagine a lot of that's coming from curve and convex farming strategy. So I think the first step forward and why I think Badger should be included in this C.o.R.E. and be one of the 5 assets that's chosen is because of the doors that it can open around Bitcoin. So Badger, a few reasons, but Badger in particular has a gauge for WBTC Badger, which obviously could be used for providing liquidity by Tokemak. Badger has an enormous amount of CVX that it can leverage to help with different votes and gauges for the T assets, regardless if they're Bitcoin or not, that Tokemak would potentially be vying for in the future. And I also think it could be the start of jumping into the Bitcoin ecosystem. There isn't a BTC Reactor today. And if there was, Badger is an asset that can give booster rewards, arguably the highest rewards on any Bitcoin pools that exist come out of the Badger vault system. I think it's up to like 30 or 40% if it's over collateralized with, if it's boosted over 100% with Badger. So similar to how, Curve gives different ranges for APY and the gauges. Badger's boost system does something similar. So with Tokemak, with you guys holding Badger, you then get boosted rewards on your Bitcoin. And then you have a partner that can help drive more organic yield in the curve and convex ecosystems. And then that's where Citadel can potentially come in as well. Citadel is aiming to be the largest community-owned Bitcoin position in the world. And with that, it will obviously have a shitload of Bitcoin. Tokemak's one of the 9 partners, and as we call them, Knights, that are going to be collaborating with Citadel on its launch, and will have a piece or have a share of the Citadel token supply right from the get-go, which, if locked for 21 weeks, gives governance rights around what the treasury actually does, which assets could be accepted in that treasury, which protocols that treasury is deposited into. So now all of a sudden, Tokemak has, if there was a Badger Reactor, you have the ability to get boosted yield on your Bitcoin, but then you also have a big Bitcoin LP that could support Tokemak, and it could support that BTC Reactor. All at the same time, it in itself will hold a lot of CVX, could potentially hold a lot of token in the future, and drive booster rewards around this vibrant new Bitcoin ecosystem. So I think there is an enormous amount of opportunity and collaboration, and it really starts with the Badger token getting a reactor. Citadel is also going to have a lot of Badger that it could then deposit into the reactor. Badger could work towards using T Badger as one of the boost assets inside of the Badger vault system. So if anyone deposits Badger into Toke, they could then use that T-Badger and still get a boost on their Bitcoin inside of the Badger Vault system, as an example. So I think the opportunities are endless, and it really speaks to having a partner to drive yield influence and support a larger ecosystem around Bitcoin.
Yeah, this is extremely well put, because I think to most people, like it's not quite apparent. First of all, I think that Bitcoin in itself, right? I think there's often this misconception that, there's not much to do with it. And I think I would personally like to see, more of Bitcoin like in DeFi, because I'm like personally also like very interested in Bitcoin. And then on the other hand, it's very well put, like this kind of also like symbiosis between Badger and Citadel, that these are like not really, just two pieces apart, but those kind of work together, and then could like together with, with Tokemak, you could like leverage kind of both arms of it. So yeah, fully agreed there.
Yeah, you touched on a lot. You clearly understand what we're up to and what we're trying to accomplish. And as a decentralized market maker, we're asset neutral. We just want to make markets wherever there's demand for a given token. So yeah, more exposure to Bitcoin is something that we're all in favor of, supporting that demand, creating markets. Yeah, standing up a reactor for wrap Bitcoin, I think, is certainly something that is of interest to us. And then using that as a pair asset in order to trade on various dexes is super useful. So curious if so I believe for Citadel, we whitelisted Tokemak pilots who I think voted in Core 2, if I recall correctly. If someone did participate in governance on Tokemak previously, would they need to take action by a certain time in order to participate in Citadel? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great thing to highlight, because this community in particular is one of the few that has the opportunity to participate early. So with Citadel's launch, we're attempting to kind of rewrite the playbook on how to launch a new DAO, new protocol, similar to how we rewrote the playbook on how to launch Badger. But there's going to be no other sales, private, public, or anything outside of one we call a community sale, where only whitelisted individuals can buy Citadel. They can buy them with a variety of assets: Bitcoin, CVX, Badger, stables, ETH, which will then get rebalanced accordingly to ensure obviously a heavily Bitcoin denominated treasury, along with the ability to get yield on that Bitcoin. But only users that have actually used the dApps or participated in the ecosystems of our 9 partners, you guys included, are whitelisted to even participate in that community sale. Anybody that wants to check that out, they can go check that out at CitadelDAO.io, and they can put their address in and see if they qualified. And, sorry, say that again. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said something.
I'm sorry, I think it was probably just background noise. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so CitadelDAO.io, you can put in your address, see if you qualify. The launch is going to be happening, over the next month or so. And, as I mentioned earlier, the actual DAOs or protocols, Tokemak included, are going to be getting a percentage of of the total supply that's allocated for partners, 5%. And there's also going to be an opportunity for those partners to bribe users to vote for their night, as we call it, in that initial community sale. So when they're participating, they would have qualified, for example. Then when they're participating, they have to pick one of the 9 partners. It's kind of like choosing their tribe. And those with the most votes, just to simplify, it's a little more detailed than that, but those with the most votes will get a larger piece of the pie of that 5% allocated for those partners. And what's really important there is, aligning the interests of the protocols and DAOs that will most likely want to have influence around a large Bitcoin treasury, and also have built protocols that could allow that Bitcoin treasury to be the most used and get the most utility, and obviously generate the most yield as quickly as possible, right? Like we've talked about this potential symbiotic relationship between Badger, Tokemak, and Citadel, how much more likely that would happen, and how much value there would be for all parties if there was shared ownership across the board. And that's what we're really attempting to do right from day zero, and to ensure, instead of VCs and a bunch of random large whales that don't give a shit about anything but number go up, holding the token. Instead, it's the protocols that potentially want influence around a large LP, and a protocol that potentially, or protocols that potentially want a large LP to really maximize and optimize how they participate in their system, right? Like if Toke looks to introduce, different locking mechanics in the future to give, boost on different things that they're doing or whatever it may be, who better to do that than, or who better to kickstart that than, a very public, large LP that Toke has, influence around, what it does, as an example. While everyone's making revenue, everyone's driving value across the table. It's like having, we talk about parasitic and mercenary capital in DeFi, and how a lot of the big, large capital allocators really just give a shit about, making a quick buck. And we've seen that time and time and time again, especially in the last year. But I believe moving forward, it's really going to be about, DAOs and treasuries and protocol controlled value that have genuine shared interests in what they're trying to get out of leveraging that protocol, and working with these different partners and protocols that are going to be dictating how these systems work and operate. So this is an attempt to try and do that from the beginning.
I think it's a super thoughtful method of launching. So super glad that you included Tokemak, and we're going to be able to support that. So yeah, pilots, stay tuned in the next month for that whitelist opportunity. We'll keep you posted with updates when that happens. Tokemak, any questions from your end thus far?
No, I think Spadaboom answered everything so well that I basically don't have any deeper questions. Especially like Citadel, I think was very well explained, and it's kind of how it works together with Badger, and why it would be interesting, or in the interest of like the pilot of Tokemak, to get Badger on board for the reactor.
Yeah, something even goes a step further there. I didn't talk about it because it's a little deep, but Badger's really attempting to move to become more of a base layer protocol where anybody can deploy their own vaults and yield strategies in a completely permissionless way, self-custodial way, with complete autonomy. That's what we're moving towards with the tech that we're building, rather than multi-sigs and different set strategies and different capital allocations happening at a vault level and strategy level. And with that being said, Citadel is really going to be the first protocol to build on top of Badger. Any capital in its treasury is going to be automated with unique vault strategies that are going to be built for Citadel, and those strategies could be across Curve Convex, eventually could be across Tokemak, it could be across Balancer, and in a variety of other places. And I think there's a really unique opportunity, as well as both of our protocols and DAOs work closer together, for Badger to for Tokemak to build on Badger, build treasury automation, and how how you handle your protocol control value, right? Because today, in your farming activities and what you do to maximize yield and be that decentralized market maker, for the most part, is through more manual processes, through multi-sigs. And moving forward, if there could be custom and tailored strategies that do exactly what you would be doing, but do it at a smart contract level that you have, that you have self-custody around, and that's immutable and tried and true and tested and battle tested with billions of dollars, that's very powerful. So I think that comes a little down the road, but that's the opportunity. And I think, again, it just starts with Badger having a reactor, Badger showcasing and the community showcasing the power of that alignment, and then moving into how there could be a joint collaboration around Citadel, and how that could potentially bleed into Badger being one of the Lego pieces underneath the Tokemak Tokemak. I don't know. I was going to come up with a cool analogy, but one of the Lego pieces in your guys' arsenal.
Yeah, and it's the VL-CTDL holders that would vote on strategies, right? On the allocation on the Citadel side.
Of the Citadel treasury, yeah. The point that I'm making is like, we can Badger the protocol can create custom strategies regardless, for other groups, like for other protocols, like for you guys to put your Curve LPs into, and instead of you taking the CRV and staking it for CVX CRV and taking the CVX and locking X percentage of it and taking those rewards and doing X with it, like that's all automated, similar to what it's going to be doing for Citadel type thing.
Okay, awesome. Because there's also like the idea, I was just thinking on the Citadel model, because I have like a little flow chart in front of me, that there could be then some, like if, for example, Tokemak holds a ton of like VL-CTDL, that there could be some pass-through votes to like, also liquidity directors to like vote on these strategies. All right.
Yeah, of course. Most certainly. Right? Like if VL Citadel holders dictate the amount and which protocols to deploy a percentage of that treasury into, and then that could trickle down into, which specific reactors and things along those lines. And of course, there's going to be meta governance there with Toke and stake Toke. That could be really interesting as well.
Love some meta governance, CJ.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. So I hope we get there. It's just a matter of like time. Like you said, in terms of the most successful version of Badger and Citadel, can you describe what that looks like and also what it would take to get there for each protocol?
I'd say for Badger, it has the largest protocols in the world, building on top of its unique tech and automated yield strategies to maximize and optimize, what they do with their capital, or protocols that are built on top that are leveraging, automated yield management or reward management as a way to actually provide a service that's different than what a Badger could do. Like as an example, how Alchemix, focuses on offering people self-repaying loans, but under the hood, it leverages Yearn's vaults for the purpose of generating that yield in an automated and secure way, right? Like that's an example of, it's not just Alchemix putting their money to work or the controlled value of the protocol, but instead actually building an app layer on top of that. So when we think about that progression and having, the largest protocols in the world building on top of Badger in a way where we've pushed the tech forward, and it is completely autonomous. It is completely self-custodial, and it allows anybody anywhere to generate and create their own yield strategies with a couple clicks of a button. And on the Citadel side, it's really about being, again, the largest Bitcoin. It's not just about being the largest Bitcoin holder, but really having a massive influence across this new ecosystem of finance to drive that utility and in the earliest days drive that yield that doesn't exist. And we all know yield then equates to liquidity, and liquidity then creates to additional utility and things along those lines. So that would be the ideal success state for Citadel, where it is the largest holder of Bitcoin in the world.
That's great. Yeah, like Tokemak said, you did a great job covering a lot of topics, really in depth. So you helped make my job really easy by answering some stuff before I had a chance to ask it. So really appreciate all the great insight and your thoughts here today.
No problem. You are an idol, so like I had to step up my game, right? Like if I'm in the presence of a blue-bearded king idol, I have to step it up.
If only I got it during the mint. I had to pick that one up on secondary. My 4 I minted weren't very special, unfortunately, but cool project. I like the idols helping secure Ethereum. So big fan of that one. Shout out to the idols team. Cool. Spadaboom. If someone wants to keep track of Badger and Citadel, where should they go to learn more and stay in touch?
You can go to badger.com to get everything you need to know about Badger. I'd highly encourage anybody to join the Discord, very active community there. You can find the Discord link on Twitter under @BadgerDAO. CitadelDAO, you'll most likely find scrolling through the BadgerDAO Twitter feed, but nonetheless, you can go to CitadelDAO.io. There, you should join the Discord, very active community that's grown relatively quickly, along with for the engineering eyes in the group that want to get a feel for our code, of course, all open source and available to review and dig into. If you want to start participating, we have an early contributor program going on right now for anybody across any discipline that wants to contribute to the DAO and get the ball rolling. There's going to be Citadel rewards upon launch that are going to be allocated a good chunk to those early contributors. So, start in the Discord. You can find it on the Twitter for both Badger and Citadel. They're separate Discords, by the way. And then of course vote for Badger. Vote for Badger in C.o.R.E. I think it could open up an enormous amount of opportunity for both protocols. And I think it'd be a great opportunity for us to start working together.
Well said. Big fan of what you guys are doing. Super eager for the Citadel, so looking forward to that one. Spadaboom, really appreciate your time today. I know we'll be in touch soon. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Talk to you soon, man.
See ya.
All right.
Ciao.
Later.